and welcome to our first video on GitHub and Git and GitHub series. Today we are diving into a topic that is absolutely essential for every developer, and that is version control. So let's get started. In this video, we are going to cover the topics like version control, why Git is important, Git's architecture, Git workflow, common interview questions, and at the end of the video, we're going to have some conclusion. So let's begin with version control. You can think of version control as a time machine for our code. It is a system that records changes to a file or a set of files over time so that we can recall some specific versions later. For example, we are making a project that can have various versions. So Git that version control help us to come back and forth across different versions. You can think of it like writing a research paper. For a research paper, you can have different drafts. For example, you can have paper draft 1, draft 2, final edits, and at the end the final version. So you can see that there are different version of the same paper before it get released. So this is where version control comes into help, that it helps you to record the changes that happens over a time, and you can recall all the previous version if you required. If you had made some error, you can come back to the previous version, and version control helps to make these changes automatic without any clutter. Basically it is like a time machine where you can go forward, go backward, wherever you want. Different versions, yeah, different types of version control. So version control can be classified into two versions. One is centralized version control, another is distributed version control. Centralized version control, CVCS, is like a single central library. Everyone checks out all the books, make changes to it, and return to the main library. And all the history is stored at one place. So it is, as you can see in this picture, that's diagram. That is a single repository, single server. Everyone can have a copy. The copy just they make changes directly to the repository, to the server, which is online, and all the changes history has been stored in the server. We can say that examples of distributed that centralized version system is SVN and Mercurial. On the other hand, if you look into the distributed version control system, um, it is every person is getting a copy of the entire library, entire repository, and once you get the copy with your hand, you can make changes to it, uh, that save those changes, and then once you are satisfied with the changes, you can share it with the others. So everyone has a history of all the changes on their own computer. So as you see in this diagram, there is a single server, single repository, and in local, anyone can have a copy of that repository. They make a change to it, and once they are satisfied with the change, and they push it to the main repository. So this is distributed version control, and the greatest example is Git. So you can see that in centralized version control system, all the changes were happening directly into the main server. But in that distributed version control, we get a copy of the repository, the main repository in our local system. We make a change to it, and once we are satisfied, all the changes has been forwarded to the main server. So we will see why Git is so important. We in the the last slide we have understood that Git is a distributed version control system. So with so many options out there, why has Git become the go-to for every developer? We can say that it has four main reasons. First is the speed. Git is incredibly fast as most operations are done locally on machines, and we don't need that is network connections to view history or make a commit. So this is one of the reasons. The next is offline access, as I have already told, that you don't need a network access for accessing the Git history and the Git logs. So you can say that you can have the whole history on the machine. You can work on plane, that is at coffee shop, and without any internet. So that makes it very accessible, and that makes it very attractive. The next is branching and merging. Git's branching model is a superpower. It's very lightweight, that when we want to create a branch and we don't have to go through a lot of hassle, it is very lightweight, which encourages of developers to that experiment on a new feature without messing up with the code base. So what we do is that we create a branch from the main branch, and we can experiment on it without touching or affecting the main code base. That makes us very attractive, that the Git. So we can say that Git has a very vast community, and it is a standard in industry nowadays. So knowing Git and mastering it is a must if you want to excel in your career. So before going into the commands, the common use commands, we will look into the Git architecture. So the Git architecture consists of three parts: the working directory, the staging area, and the local repository. So what is working directory? So working directory is the project folder on your computer. So it's the file we are actively working on. So think of this like a draft or a scratch pad where you are scribbling all your changes, all your working. So this is a working directory. So next comes the staging area. So this is the temporary space where you decide which changes you want to include in your next commit. So commit means a change that gets permanently reflect in the code base. Okay. So as I've told you, working directory is like a scribble pad. That's where you're scribbling all your changes. So for example, you have made around 10 changes, and you want just three of the changes to be affect the main code. So in the staging area, you will keep those three important changes to be added to the main code. Okay, so working directory, you make the changes. Staging area, where you keep all your important changes that you want to be added into the main code base. Third is the local repository. This is the core of Git. So it is a hidden folder which stores all the version history, the commits, and all the branches you have created. So once you commit a change, it's permanently recorded there. Okay. Next, we will be talking about Git workflow. So this is a cycle you will use every day. So the first is Git clone. Here, you start by cloning an entire repository from platforms like GitHub, Bitbucket to your local machine. So as we know, Git is a distributed version control system. So from the server, you get a copy of the main repository into your local machine. For that, you have to use git clone. After cloning the repository, you make changes to the files you want to in your working directory. Once you edit and satisfied, you have to use git add. Git add In git add, you stage the files that you want to include in your next commit. As you have discussed in the last previous video, that there is a staging area where you decide which changes you want to add to the code base. So this is where git add comes handy. After deciding which changes needs to be added, you will use git commit. Git commit is like a save button, which saves all your changes, state changes to the local repository. And after for adding the commit, you have to add a message to it. So git commit comes with a message, and the message tells us that what changes have been made. It's a basic description. Once everything is commit in the local repository, the next step is to push the code to the main server so that it gets reflected into the main code base. For that, we will use git push. So using git push, you upload your local commits to remote repository. This saves the changes, this shares the changes within the team. So once everything is done, we have to use git pull. Git pull is to download all the changes that have been made by all the team members so that the code remain consistent across all the users in their local repository. Okay. So this is the basic workflow. This workflow ensures that everyone is always working with the most up-to-date code. Okay. Next, we will discuss two of the important questions that can be asked from the topics we have covered in this video. The first question is, what is the difference between Git and GitHub? So Git is a tool. It is a version control software that runs on the local computer, whereas GitHub is a service. It's a web platform that provides a central local for all the Git repositories. So it's like Google Drive for your Git projects. Okay. So next question is, what problem does version control solve? It solves four important problems. First is collaborations, history, backup, and revert. So we come to the conclusion. So version control isn't just about saving code. It's about being a better, more organized, and more collaborative developer. So if you like the video, please hit like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will